Tonight I'm cooking casarecce with veal and Pinot Grigio, which is a family favorite, and it's even dairy free, so James gets to enjoy it along with the rest of us. So I'm going to go ahead and show y'all what I'm doing here. I have some water on to boil that's already salted, and then I have a skillet over here that I'm going to put some olive oil in. Oops, alright. Bit of olive oil and swirl that around. Okay. I'm going to turn this on to medium heat. Hey, Erica! All right. Now over here I have one clove of minced garlic. So I just chopped that up already. So I like to have all my ingredients in place. And I'm going to toss this in here with our olive oil. So the one thing that's annoying about garlic is it's kind of sticky. Let me grab the rest of the garlic. It's just one clove of fresh minced garlic. If you cut off the ends of the garlic, that makes it easy to peel away the skin and before you mince it. If I'm chopping more than one clove of garlic, I used to like to use my Euro chopper, but I've actually found that it's actually a lot easier to use my mini food processor, and it works really well. So if I'm doing 2, 3, 4, 6 cloves of garlic, or more than that, if it's on one of my catering days, I love pulling out that mini food processor because it makes the work a lot easier. All right, so I'm going to heat this garlic for just a minute. Did you like it, James? I went ahead and toasted some bread with some olive oil spread in the oven. And I added a little bit of Parmesan cheese to mine and Dane's so we could have a little bit of an appetizer. And James liked it. As you can hear, he wants more bread. He loves bread. He's a carnivore, but he also loves bread and pasta. Hey, Lainey, I'm getting so excited to see you at the conference or the summit or whatever. Dane always tells me it's not a CE conference, it's like a big summit. Or he always tells me there's a difference between CE and bigger meetings like the summit. But anyway, I'm so excited to see you and catch up in a few weeks. All right, so that is sizzling, so that's just perfect. And now I'm going to add our veal. So over here, I have a pound of ground veal that I went ahead and already opened and defrosted. All right. All right, so that is sizzling there. I'm going to wipe my hands off real quick. And I'm just going to break this up because we want to get our veal nice and browned. Does it look yummy, James? James likes to help in the kitchen. But I try to limit him to activities that he won't get hurt with. So we just want to get this nice and browned, and we're going to go about 8 minutes. So just kind of punch down on the meat, chop it up, super easy. I had never had veal until probably within this past year, and this is the only recipe that I've done with it, but we've repeated this recipe at least 3 or 4 times. It's definitely a big hit in our household. The veal is nice and rich and has a lot of flavor to it, but it's also a little bit, to me it's a little bit lighter in flavor. It's not quite so, I guess, heavy of flavor and dark in meat as regular ground beef is. So this makes a little bit of a lighter pasta than doing your standard meat sauce and tomato sauce with spaghetti, but you still get a lot of flavor and a lot of richness with it as well. So kind of an oxymoron, lighter but richer. And also very tender. Okay, so I'm going to give that a minute and maybe chop it up some more in a second. Hey, Lauren. This is a yummy recipe. Even James likes it. Tell Robert I said hello. We miss seeing you guys. All right, so I'm going to let that sit for a minute. and I'm going to go ahead and put our pasta into the boiling water. So I have some Casarecce pasta, so it has a fun little kind of twist to it, as you see. So there's some kind of a hole in the middle that'll help hold the sauce and the bits of ground beef, and it's kind of curved. I usually make this pasta with orecchiette, which is kind of like little thumb-sized bowls of pasta that are great to scoop up the sauce and the ground beef with. So this is the first time I'm trying a different kind of pasta. This should be yummy as well. So I usually use about 3/4 a pound of pasta in this recipe. Most boxes of pasta have 1 pound in them, or 16 ounces. The orecchiette and the Casarecce that I get usually come in 12-ounce boxes. So I had just a little bit left in one box. So I don't know, maybe like an ounce or maybe 2 in one of the boxes. So I just went ahead and added that in. So I might have 13 or 14 ounces instead of 12. I'm just trying to use up some extra pasta I have on hand. Hey Patrick, hope that this gives you and Reagan some good ideas. Alright, I'm going to add just a little bit of olive oil to the pot to keep it from sticking. And we're going to bring this to a boil and then let it go about 10 minutes for al dente pasta. So, so soft but still a little bit firm, kind of to the tooth. Alright, so you can see this is starting to brown up. It's not quite there yet, but I'm going to mash this up a little bit more now that it's cooking. Alright, with my kitchen helpers, grab a colander to stick in the sink. Thank you. It's always great to have kitchen helpers. This is smelling good already. So I like to have this nice and pretty, well finely chopped up for this dish. And I'm going to add some salt and pepper that I have over here. So some freshly ground salt and pepper. I'm just going to kind of dump that in. I maybe had half a teaspoon or so, maybe a half to 3/4 a teaspoon of both the salt and pepper. Alright, this is looking great. It's getting nice and browned. Just going to break this up a little bit more. You want to say hi, James? Can you say hi? So you love being in the kitchen watching Mommy, yeah? Alright. So I don't know about y'all, but the spring forward time change always throws me off. I mean, fall back is one thing. You get an extra hour of sleep, and I'm kind of all for that. But spring forward always throws us for a loop. Because if you wake James up early, he gets cranky. And I guess if you wake me up early, I get cranky too. And we're both cranky throughout the day. Although really fall back isn't as good as it used to be, as I'm sure a lot of y'all with young kids would probably agree, because your kids don't know they get an extra hour of sleep. They're going to be up at the same time as usual. So we tried to let James rest a little bit more today, so we could kind of get a little bit of rest and catch up too. Alright, looking good. Okay. And we give our pasta a quick stir so it doesn't stick. Especially at the beginning when you're cooking pasta, it's good to give it a few stirs. when it's more likely to be denser and sink to the bottom. That's when stirring is most important at the beginning. As the pasta gets lighter and cooking through, as long as there's plenty of water for it to cook in, and you didn't overfill your pot, it's not as likely to stick together or stick to the bottom. All right. Okay, well, it's been at least 6 minutes. We're kind of coming up on it, and you know what? All of that looks nice and brown. So I think we're ready to go on to the next step. Yeah, it's been 7 minutes now, and this is looking good. So we're going to keep going. All right. So next, I'm going to add 3/4 cup of chicken broth, and I have reduced sodium chicken broth. Remember to use a liquid measuring cup when you're measuring liquids, so you get to those graduated lines. We're coming down to eye level. This is the science person in me. Eye level 3/4. There we go. It's just a little bit over, but it's okay since we're cooking, not baking. And we're also going to add a 1/4 cup of wine. We're going to top that off. Extra chicken stock. I think I went to 1 3/4 instead of 2 1 1/2. I think it should have been 1 1/2, but a little fudge doesn't hurt, so I'm just going to add a splash more of wine. So we got 1/2 cup of wine in there, maybe just a little bit splash more of chicken broth than I would have usually done, but this will cook down, so that's okay. Okay, and we're going to bring this to a simmer, and we're going to simmer that for about 5 minutes. You can technically add in the white wine and the chicken broth separately. I just find it easier to dump it all in together. Oh, a little bit of flame. Okay, so I bumped the heat up on this so we can get it to a simmer. All right, and yeah, Patrick, the wine adds a little bit of fruity flavor, and since it's only like 1/2 cup in the whole dish, and you can probably get 6 servings out of this, I mean, it's hardly anything, and it just amps up the flavor a little bit. You get a little bit of floral and fruity flavor out of that. I used an Italian Pinot Grigio. I like to keep a big bottle of wine in the fridge that has a screw on top that I can keep around for cooking, and if it's not, 100%, okay, if it's not the day I opened it, if it's a week or 2 later, it still works great for cooking. And then I use the chicken broth instead of beef broth. That'll give the dish a lighter flavor than if I'd used beef broth with the veal. So the beef broth has a little bit, the chicken broth works better with the veal because the veal has a little bit more delicate flavor than regular ground beef would. I guess that's a little bit more, a better term to use than I was describing earlier. The veal's a bit more delicate in flavor than regular ground beef. So we're using the chicken broth with that. That and the white wine will create a nice light sauce. It's not heavy like a cream sauce or a tomato sauce would be. All right, so that's starting to come to a simmer there. We can see some bubbles on the surface, yay. And probably a couple more minutes on the pasta here. So I also have pre-measured out. I have a 1/2 teaspoon of crushed rosemary, and then I have 1 teaspoon of herbs de Provence. I usually do 1 teaspoon of thyme instead of herbs to prevent, but I ran out of time, and there's actually thyme in the herbs to prevent, along with a little bit more crushed rosemary and some marjoram and sage and a few other things. So I think that'll work well with the veal instead of using the thyme. That'll be a nice substitute, but just thyme and the rosemary works beautifully together in this dish. Okay, so Patra, I would say beef broth versus bone broth, you're going to get a more intense flavor from bone broth. So if you're just looking for that big punch and wow factor, then I would use bone broth. And it would depend on the dish you're making too. But the bone broth would definitely be richer. So you'd probably want to use the bone broth in a dish where it was going to be the star ingredient. I made beef short ribs last week, and they were delicious. And I used a little bit of beef broth, but I also used some red wine as well. And so I think the mixture of the red wine and the beef broth, they kind of interplay with each other, and added some other stuff too. I think I added I guess it would be a bottle, just one of the regular small bottles, not a beer bottle, not a wine bottle, of Guinness in there as well. And it turned out really good. There were some carrots in there, and leeks, and some celery, and of course the beef short ribs that were maybe about that big a piece. They weren't super long. But between the Guinness and the red wine, if I'd used bone broth, that would have been a waste because it would have been overpowered by the other ingredients. Hope that helps. Yeah. All right. It would probably shine really well in certain soups. All right, that's been going about 5 minutes. I'm going to go ahead and add the herbs that I measured out before. Give that another stir. Okay, I'm probably going to let that go about 10 more minutes. So we'll reduce the sauce. All the wine will have been cooked off as well, but all that flavor from the wine and the chicken broth will have reduced to the pasta sauce while it's simmering with the veal, and it'll get really tender. And it'll have a chance to meld with all the herbs. And the garlic, of course, that we added earlier. Alright, then give this another stir. And I might test it out. It's been 10 minutes by now. Alright, I'll just get one piece. Whoops. So this is a kind of a fun shape, something different. Alright, I think that's cooked pretty well. That seems to be al dente. So cooked through, but still has a little bit of a bite to it. I'm going to turn this off. I'm going to actually turn this down to like medium-high instead of high. It's simmering away nicely. Alright, so let me grab pasta pie. Hold on. Alright. Alright, y'all get a steamy view right now. Alright. Alright, so that's nice and drained. Just that pasta is looking great. Alright, so I'm going to let that go maybe about 8 more minutes now, and then add the pasta and maybe let that go just another minute or two until it kind of all melds together. So another 10 minutes, this will be done. And then optional, at the end, you can add a tablespoon or two of butter if you want, or if you'd rather add a little bit of dairy-free butter like we have on hand, that's an option too. And you can add a half cup or however much you want of freshly grated Parmesan if you want, and have that cooked together with the veal and in the pasta. But what we usually do is sometimes I'll add a little bit of the dairy-free olive oil spread at the end just to kind of give it a little bit more richness to the sauce. Sometimes I don't. It's good either way. I'm sure butter would make it nice and give it a little bit of richness as well, but we want James to be able to eat this. And instead of adding the Parmesan directly to the pasta, I just have it off to the side, like I have some over here. I grated some, and there's our dairy-free spread that we have. I have some Parmesan that I grated the other day, and I just kind of reused one of our cheese containers that we had on hand. But I freshly grated some Parmesan a few days ago, and so we had that in the fridge. And when it's time to make our plates and sit down at the table, if Jane or I want some, we can just sprinkle it on top. So that's kind of a way to get around us having a little bit of dairy in ours, and James is still perfectly A-okay. And then we can have a nice salad or something to go with this. Like maybe we'll have a spinach salad, and I'll whip up some balsamic vinaigrette or something. That would go well with this. All right. All right, so this is going to go maybe 5 or 6 more minutes, and then I'm going to add the pasta, and it'll be all set. So I can't wait to sit down and eat this. It's usually a delicious meal that all of us enjoy, so I'll take pictures at the end so y'all can see. Y'all take care. Bon appetit.